Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Rich Newman. I'm the Edwin Wolf, second director of the library company. I've been here since June, so I'm relatively new, but I'm already learning that the library company is a wonderful place because of its amazing diversity. We like to emphasize our longevity. We've been around since 1731. We're Ben Franklin's library. We like to emphasize themes of empowerment because he, like a lot of the trustees and users of the library company, thought that books were power because they contained information about the world. We're also starting to emphasize something that our development director talked about yesterday in a meeting with me, community. We're trying to reach out and engage new communities of people. And so on that score, we're really proud to host all of you and new communities of artists and activists and educators for this wonderful program on the Moon Reader. I'm going to turn things over in just a minute to one of the key organizers in this effort, Erica Piola. I just want to take a moment to thank, as she will again, some of the people who made this event possible. We got Nicole Scalessa, who is here recording the program. We have our wonderful panel. We have Allison McMenamin and Emily O'Rourke at the front, who signed you all in. All of these people make an event like this possible. And so if we can get this on record, could you all give them a round of applause? One final note, this holds not only for tonight's event, but for the entire installation of the Moon Reader that Teresa Jaynes and her crew have installed in our Logan room. So there is the art exhibit that teaches people Moon, and then we have also created a display case showing you 2 original documents from our collection that are dedicated to the works of William Moon in the 19th century. So if you go back and forth between history and art, I think you'll understand how powerfully connected these two things are. So again, thank you for your attendance tonight. Be friends of the library company now and in the future. I'm going to turn things over to Erica Piola. Thank you.
Suzanne's going to be mad at me.
No.
Unlike Rich, I can be nerdy and I have to read from my script, so if you will indulge me, and I need to move into the camera shot here.
You're fine on the end. Just don't go that way.
Like the comic relief part of the evening here. Yes, to calm everyone down. And, hello and welcome. I'm Erica Piola, the co-director with Rachel D'Agostino of the Visual Culture Program, the host of the Moon Reader at the Library Company of Philadelphia. I just want Rachel is hiding sort of in the back there, so there's Rachel. We are thrilled to be working with Teresa on this project, which you will hear more about shortly. Part of the mission of the Visual Culture Program is to foster relationships with the rich and vibrant arts community in Philadelphia. And we could not have been more pleased to make that connection with Teresa through our printed materials for the blind holdings. We are equally thrilled to continue to work with Teresa on her next project, Talking to the Fingers in the Language of the Eyes. Generously funded by the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage, the project continues Teresa's exploration of our printed materials for the blind collection, the majority given to us by our much revered longtime donor, Michael Zinman. We cannot be more delighted. Our hope for both of these projects is to create physical and virtual meeting places that challenge our understanding of sight historically and in the modern day. What is wonderful about the Moon Reader is the juxtaposition of historical and modern technologies and tools, the Moon alphabet and the iPod and iPad. Whether you spend a minute or an hour with the reader, you cannot help but reflect on how these technologies have and have not changed the world for most everyone, and what that signifies to us as individuals and as a society, not to mention the entrancing aesthetics and tactility of the embossed pages of the beautifully crafted books. Before Teresa's remarks and introductions, I just have a few more words. I wish folks to note that additional sets of the readers are on display at the McGill Library at Haverford College and the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped branch of the Free Library of Philadelphia at 919 Walnut Street. I also want to thank LCP staff who have helped to make the Moon Reader and this evening possible. Many thanks to my co-director, Rachel D'Agostino, my partner in crime, so to speak, Al DeLasta, who fashioned the base of the desk on which the reader is displayed, Jennifer Woods-Rosner for her coordination of the installation, Allison McMenamin, our maven of events and publicity, Nicole Joniak and Conchetta Barbera for their photography skills in documenting this project, and Nicole Scalessa for videotaping tonight's program. But you're not here to listen to me talk, or my comic relief here, so please let me introduce Teresa. Teresa Jaynes is an artist, educator, activist, an artistic powerhouse in Philadelphia for over 25 years. She has most recently served as the interim director of the Fleischer Art Memorial, as well as executive director of the critically acclaimed 2010 art festival, Philagrafika, that celebrated the cultural and historical importance of the printed image as popular and fine art. Jaynes was a recipient of the Pew Fellowship in the Arts in 1999, an artist in residence at the MacDowell Colony in 1998 and 2002. She has received several grants, including from the National Endowment for the Arts, Pennsylvania Council on the Arts, the Elizabeth Firestone Brown Foundation, the Independence Foundation, and the Leeway Foundation. Yes, she's not been doing much at all. The Moon Reader continues her role in the art world as a maverick with a mission to forge artistic collaborations with substantive outcomes through unorthodox and innovative works that combine history, art, and the community. Teresa.
Thank you. There's no light.
Oh, you're at work.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So let me know if I'm yelling. I'm used to yelling. I used to be a teacher, so just flag me if I'm going too loud. So thank you for coming, and it's really wonderful. This is such a little quiet, investigative little piece, and it's such a joy to me that there's a lot of people here that want to get in there with me and break the code and learn how to read it and understand this language that was, or not language actually, but this writing system that was very popular in the mid-19th century and actually was translated into 46 languages at its time. So it's now exists to a certain extent in England. It's being used, but not that much really. So who knows, we may bring it back. So right off the bat, just need to thank the library company, Erica, Rachel, Rich. We're all on a first name basis, and the staff for making this possible. This was a project that I sort of threw in their laps, and they were very gracious to say, okay, we can do this. And also I wanted to just thank Catherine Allen, who has been key with the technology and the design of this project. And of course, I wanted to thank my advisory team that includes Catherine, but also Edry Herrera and Suzanne Herb, who I've met with periodically just to say, you know, what do you think about this? Is this really offensive? I don't know. And also, and especially their work on the program that we'll have tonight. So my job is to give you just a little bit of a lead of context for the project that will lead into the conversation, and it will be brief. I came here in 2011, August 2011, by invitation from Erica and Rachel to look at the Zinman collection for printed materials for the blind. And you know, I love historical collections and always research as form of play, dive in, and start to see what's there, what starts to jump out. And the spark for me was when I came across the Moon alphabet. And like I said, this tremendous desire to understand it and to understand where it came from. And I think anytime you encounter something that you don't know the origin of it, there's an immediate sense of wonder. And that's what I wanted to recreate with the Moon Reader, was this opportunity where anyone could come along and have the tools to decipher it and read some of these stories. So the stories, the book is designed like a primer, because most of the collection is educational materials, textbooks, things like that. And so it has these lesson plans, and each lesson plan has a story with it, and each story also has a quote with it. And the quotes for me was a way of framing the story that was going to follow. And the reason I'm talking about this is because we are going to use these quotes as a way to structure our conversation as well. And so, just checking. Yep, so we're good. So what I found in the stories, which is very common in the 19th century literature, is there's really two narratives. One is the narrative of the extraordinary individual who overcomes its everything, the poverty, their disability, everything, and they do extraordinary things. And the other one is the pitiable person who is just their lost soul, and they need to be saved. And we all know that anybody could fall into that category, and that in fact, for anyone living with a disability, that there's a whole range of experiences in between those two narratives. But the dominant stories are always in those categories. So I decided to work with the narratives of these extraordinary people. And there are 5 stories about them. And then the quotes are sort of, for me, they really got to the essence of what it is that is the skill, if you will, that enables anyone to function in the world independently. So I'm going to be reading the quote and what it meant to me. So that's 2 sentences. And the question will be asked that's related to it. People in the audience have questions. And we're sort of doing it like that. And actually, Catherine's going to explain this better than me. But the last thing I would say is that when I first started looking at this material, Catherine turned me on to the author Stephen Cusisto. I'll get it, that's the 3rd time. And he's amazing. If you don't know his writing, one of his books is Planet of the Blind. Very funny. And what he referred to it as different ways of knowing. It's this idea that, there's all different ways that we learn and retain what we learn. And what I came to understand for me with this project is it's more the essential, what are the essential ways of knowing? And that those cut across anyone. That we all use them all the time. We're just not maybe aware of it, or we're not using them to the full extent that we could be. So with that, I am going to pass it on to Catherine.
Well, I'm going to introduce our panel, and how this is going to be set up is, first of all, there'll be the introductions, and then we'll ask people from the audience who received those questions to ask those questions. And first, Teresa will relay the specific quote that she used, and that's in the Moon Reader, and how she felt about it. And then we, as a team, developed the questions that bridge the gap between the 19th century and today, and our personal experiences. So first I'd like to introduce Teresa Herrera.
Thank you. Okay.
Goofball, but whatever.
Well, my name is Teresa Herrera. I am a triathlete.
Can you hear in the back? A little louder would be great.
My name is Teresa Herrera.
I think you can, if he just holds it in front of him. Just don't pull it too close.
Okay. My name is Teresa Herrera.
No, it's not.
Oh.
There it is.
Oh, here.
Okay, there we go. Whoa, we're on.
Can anyone hear my beautiful voice?
Yes.
Great. My name is Teresa Herrera. I am a triathlete, and I am also a teacher for people with visual impairment. I teach computers / iPads, iPhone, a few other stuff to people who have a visual disability. which enables them for college and work and many other activities. And that's me. Okay, and the way I have a visual limitation. My condition is congenital cataracts with glaucoma. And the way I see is that things are blurry, but I see better with my hands.
Better not go back there. Might have-
Well, touching, seeing better with my hands by touching. And basically I have limited vision in both eyes, and things look extremely blurry, but if they are closer, I'm able to see them a little better. Thank you.
And Suzanne Herb.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Herb, and can you hear me in the back?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And let's see, I have been in the fields of social work, education, and music, and in whatever order, sort of both at the, sometimes all at the same time. And I have been in Philadelphia all along, well, at least all of my working life and most of my childhood. I was actually born in Japan. And I have a special reason for having this knitting with me today, and that is that I am paying homage to all of the blind women who have gone before me. I've done a little bit of research, and they really did not have an easy road to hoe. And this is one of the ways that they were able to make a living if they were lucky in the 1800s. And this is one of the things that they would have learned in school. And this, along with Moon or Braille or any other number of competing systems for reading for the blind that were taught in the 19th century. And to really be fluent, you had to learn, at least in the US, you had to learn all of them. So that, and how I see is I don't use my eyes at all to see. I never have. And I just see with my hands and with my ears and with my heart.
I'll just make it easier for you.
Hi, Catherine here. Quickly and very briefly, my resume is I was a railroad freight brakeman for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I moved into art direction. Briefly.
Why not?
Why not? And then I had this goofy thing happen to my eyes. And so I was in the closet as an art director who couldn't see very well for a pretty long time. And after that, I worked at Apple developing a system to teach the employees and customers ways of accurately dealing with people with disabilities and teaching the features of Apple computers and devices to them. How I see is kind of wacky. I developed some time ago something called macular degeneration, and if you many people know that, but it's usually associated with older people, and I was unique enough to have a form that is similar but different, and I developed it at a much younger age than usual. So how I see is, I get the big picture, but the particulars I don't get. So, but I'm pretty good at faking it. If I'm talking to you, I probably can't see your face, but if I'm able to get past my shyness, I might ask you to let me get close enough to see your face. So, you know, we'll all work that through as I get to know you. So,
What happened?
Just put the face closer to
Oh.
and so, and I also will, I'm the timekeeper and the kind of wrangler. So if you see me looking at my iPhone, I'm not tweeting or checking my Facebook page, I'm just checking the time. So I'll start right now with what I described as the logistics of our conversation, and I hope it really is a conversation. And I will ask the person that has, excuse me? Well, I think they're going to ask the question and then you're going to do the quote.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so here's the thing. The person question will ask the question, and then Teresa will say the quote from the book and how she felt about it, and then one of us people will answer it. So, question number one, who has that?
That's me.
Would you mind?
Sure. Should I stand or?
Sure.
How do you trust your perceptions?
So it's how do you trust your perception?
Okay, so, sorry, this is a little awkward. So for me, this question came up because the first, don't be frightened by this, it's not that long, I'm just a visual person. The first quote in the book is, of all the senses, sight is the most liable to delusive illusions. And so, of course, we've all heard, don't believe everything you see. And that, I felt, was a very good start for the entire book. So, that's where the question came from.
So, Edri,
And,
how do you trust your perceptions?
Well, originally, perception to me meant my sight. But eventually I lost my sight and I ended up relying on my hearing. To rely on my hearing and to rely on other skills that I needed as a visually impaired person, as someone who practically lost their sight, I needed some training, and this training meant mobility, meaning that rely less on your sight, on the little bit of sight, and start using other senses and other things that work for you. Like an example of this is like when crossing the street. What do I listen for whenever I cross the street? Because I can't see the sign. So my thing was I'm crossing parallel and I hear the sound of the cars where they are coming. If the cars are going parallel, that means that I'm crossing. If I am going to cross and the cars are running on this direction from me, so that means not cross. And this is how I perceive myself now, that I had to adjust, not rely on my vision and rely on my other senses. This is how I view my perception right now. Thank you.
Question, who has number two?
I have number two. What does color mean to you?
Okay, so for this one, This was a quote from geometry, and it was in reference to the man in the story in that lesson. And it says, he saw the hole at once, every link of the chain at a glance. For me, that was about thinking conceptually. We all do it, but it's a huge, I would imagine, a huge key to navigating the world and having an understanding of the world. But Suzanne, you tell me.
Okay.
How do you experience color?
Well, first part of that question is, let's see, is the mic? Okay, now it is. The first part of that answer to that question is in terms of color. Color to me is nothing but a theoretical construct. I've never seen it. I have nothing, it's not part of my repertoire, but it's something that I have to think about a lot because I am a musical person, and to me, when I think about color, I don't necessarily think about it as color or even as the way I'm going to describe it to you, but it's sort of something that when I do think about it, I think of whether or not things match. Because I understand, the one thing that I do understand is if I'm hearing two sounds that are very dissonant, that don't resolve, or that are not in tune with each other, if I had to hear that all day, I think I would go bonkers. and so if I'm wearing, and the first thing that I did when I got to the house today was, do I look all right? Am I wearing things that match? Because I didn't want to be playing a C and a flat C sharp tonight. And so from what I've been told, I think I match.
You do.
Of course, it's not necessarily true. And the one other comment that I would like to make is in terms of perception. I tend to see things as, I don't see things, but because I've never seen light, and so I don't have any kind of differentiation between light and dark. So I can't tell if the light's on in the room until my electricity goes up. Then I know I better do something about it. Or if I turn the light on when somebody's visiting and they say, oh, there's no light on. And I'll say, yeah, well, I just turned it on, so what's the matter? Can't you see anything? And then they'll say, well, maybe you need to change your light bulb. So then I know that the lights were on too long. But that's how I view color. And the one thing that I do wish that we as a society were a less visually constructed one, because maybe it wouldn't matter so much. But I really do try as much as I can to be cognizant of that. And I don't really know, like if you ask me tomorrow what color I wore yesterday, I would say, oh, I don't know, but I know that this particular jacket goes with this particular shirt. And so I don't really need to know what color they are. I just need to know that if I wear them together, that I'm probably wearing a major third.
Who's question number 3?
What's an example when touch is the most important for you?
So the question is, what is an example of when touch is the most important for you? a primary way of knowing your world.
Okay, and this came out of a quote that is with the Lesson 3 Geography, and the quote is, "Common properties like density and elasticity are not known by sight alone. They are only appreciated by touch." I think it's yours.
It is.
Yeah.
You don't have a feeling about that, or?
Oh, right.
She's so off message.
So much for the leader. Okay, so for me, that was a pretty straightforward one, which is, we don't think much about touch, but what are the things that we can only know through touch?
So, while I can see the big picture, the details evade me. Besides just walking around town and saying or greeting my fair share of inanimate objects, why not be polite to everyone? I hike a lot, and so that's a really important part of where touch is really key to me. Around town, it might be because my depth perception is a little wonky. I step too deeply on a curb, but when I hike, I do take a stick with me, and I tap along my way. I try to keep up with the crew, and I do pretty well. But when the ground is not solid and it's irregular, I tap my way, or I clump my way along, and I use that to gauge where I'm going. And so touch, that's an important thing for me. Probably the primary thing is just getting around. And on the opposite end of that, I might touch something, and maybe because I haven't always relied on touch so much, I fight with it. But I do female handle things, and I kind of miss the boat a lot. But who has question number 4?
Right over here. How do you stay focused or track as you navigate the world?
Okay, well, this question came from Lesson 5, which is astronomy. And the quote is, "Darkness to the blind has no terrors." And to me, that was really about, it's just a matter of focus, what you choose to focus on. And then it's no longer darkness. Would you say that's true, Edry?
The question, would you like for me to repeat it, Edry? How do you stay focused or track as you navigate the world?
Well, staying focused as you navigate the world, for me, is being able to tune out things and tune out other sounds and focus on what I'm really aiming for. Like, for example, as I previously said, crossing a street, what do I look for? I don't see the light. As a result, I have to rely on my hearing. Sometimes I have to rely on people. And I have to block out a lot of things. Like, for example, in New York City, we know that there is a lot of construction. So, and you really have to be prepared, and you really have to have the mobility and the sensibility to block out things and focus on the things that you are aiming for, because if not, that means you can end up crossing when the cars are not, when the light is not for you, or you can end up in a 4-foot deep hole, construction. And I think that my hearing, tuning out the noise and focusing exactly on what I'm going for, that also creates a big advantage for me, definitely. Thank you.
So are you going to tell the story about the 4-foot hole?
Oh.
That's a great story.
Well, when I lost my sight, I was still in denial that I have the sight problem. So I got my mobility. They gave me a cane. And I said, no, I don't need this cane. So as I'm walking out of my house, I make a right, and I hear a drill. And I said, oh, I'm gonna cross over because this is on my sidewalk. It's not on the other side. But to my surprise, it was on the other side. And as I walk to the other side, I drop in the hole. All of a sudden, I see this bear with a turban on his head, and I say, oh, Jesus Christ. And the guy says to me, my friend, are you okay, my friend? And I said, Jesus Christ, is God's Muslim? Terrible. After that, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter what people say or do. I'm using my cane, and since I can do it. So, if I had the cane, probably that would not have happened. And it's basically like Catherine says, you're reluctant to doing the things that are good for you, but you don't feel normal if you don't do those things, like, for example, walking without the cane. But eventually, our experience, I learned, and I'm using my cane.
Who's question 5?
If I were to describe something to you, what would be the first thing that you would want to know?
I'll repeat that. If I were to describe something to you, what would be the first thing that you would want to know?
So this came from the quote with botany lesson 4. And the quote is, color, it should be remembered, is nature's dress and not nature's self. And for me, that meant, that there is a true essence of things, and that is at the heart of how we know the world. Who's answering that question?
I think I am.
Suzanne.
Oh, okay.
If any, let's see, I think, where's Mike? Hi, Mike. If I were describing, if I were to ask someone to describe me, what would I want to know first? The first thing I'd want to know is if it's something that I can touch and experience for myself. And if it's something that I can't touch, once I've experienced it and I've touched it, then I might ask questions about it, like what color is it, which, is it translucent or transparent or something like that, which really doesn't mean anything to me, but I ask those kind of questions anyway, because I remember it for about 5 minutes, and then it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. If I don't, if it's not something that I can touch, I like people to describe things to me in a way that's meaningful for them. Rather than to try to explain it in a way that they think I'll understand, because it may be that they're spending too much time with their visual cortex and different parts of the brain trying to figure out how to translate it for me, rather than trying to sort of very spontaneously realize what it means to them, why it's meaningful to them. And that actually gives me more information a lot of times. So that, for example, if I'm in a gallery, I might, where everything is visual, and somebody might want to describe something to me, I would say, well, why don't you describe it? What is it about it that you like? What it makes it meaningful for you? Or what is it that repels you about this picture? What upsets you? What makes you happy? What, you know, and sometimes those things are perhaps as important. And so that sometimes if I'm getting somebody else's interpretation, I might then be able to make my own interpretation of something. And then, of course, if I can get perhaps the historical context of the picture or whatever, that's kind of neat to know too. But if I'm just having someone describe something to me, it's often very meaningful for them to describe why it's significant to them and how it relates to their world. And one more thing that I just thought about, and that is that that I have a very vivid imagination, and even though I've never seen anything, I've felt many things, and I've heard many things, and there are many times that I will hear things that I'm not supposed to hear. Because people think that if I'm looking, that since I'm not looking at them, that I can't be listening, that I'm not in their world. And so, of course, as long as I can hear it, I'm in it.
So as Teresa said, we'd really like this to be a conversation. So far it's been kind of question and answer, which is great. I hope we've all learned something from that. I learned something from my colleagues here every time I hear them speak. And my experience with the Moon Project is that this allowed people that lost their sight later in life, much like myself and Edri, it allowed for a sense of independence and gaining knowledge and communication. But we have a couple of questions in our pockets, but I'd really like to see if people here have something they'd like to talk about, or any other questions that occur to you. Anybody? Are we gonna?
Sure, Susan?
I'm just, you've mentioned touch and hearing and so forth. What about smell? Is smell an important sense in
I have
your...
a good story. I actually have a good story.
Is that on?
There you go. Okay, the numbers today. Yes, I think also I rely a lot on my smell, and this comes when I'm hungry and looking for a restaurant. 100%. I can't see the McDonald's, but I can. Yeah, of course it's McDonald's. and I also have another story, and I'm going to make this one short. Sometimes people say things out of the blues, and one time I'm walking out of the store to buy a pack of gum, and
I know
this lady comes over and says to me, "Did you just realize how much you gave to the man?" And I say, "Yes, I did. I gave him $5. And how do you do it? Because you can't see." And I said, "Well, one of my great ability is that I have the ability to smell the money, and this way I'll tell you how much." And she goes, "Is that right? Wait a second." So takes out $20. I flip the $20 around, I put it closer to my face, and then I go, and I see the 20 because it's big. And I said to her, "Here, this is a $20. And she goes, "Oh my God, that's
that's incredible. No, but wait a second. How much is this? So I take the dollar bill, I turn it around, see the number, and I say, this is a $10. Oh my God, baby Jesus is true. It was a sense you gain another. In this case, you get you get us the balance. So that was actually my story. So the lady left the store thinking that yes, I had a special sense, and you don't have a special sense. It's just like anyone else. I mean, we just tune in more to use what we have, and we try to use it as much as we can, and develop more of an awareness when it comes to hearing, when it comes to smell, when it comes to touch, that a lot of people take for granted when they only rely on their sight. And I'm glad that you guys like my story.
I just wanted to say real quick to Susan's question, in the future with the larger exhibition project, a couple of people in the audience and I will be working with Monell Center, Census Center, and around smell to use that in the exhibition. And Pam Dalton, who was here, but I think she's gone now, she is a scientist who specializes in smell. And it's really interesting having these conversations with her. One of the things she said was that they found that as our landscape becomes more monotonous, where every mall chain, things start to really, landmarks are difficult, that more and more we will rely on smell to help us navigate, which I thought was really incredible. Little tidbit there.
Hi, I have a question. For those blind from birth, I was wondering how you dream at night. Is there a visual component at all, or is that possible? Probably not.
Let me repeat the question. If I heard it correctly, is how do you dream? And I have to say that when I became better friends with Suzanne, I felt comfortable enough to ask her that same question.
And you get to ask it. You get to ask it for free. And I will tell you.
I accept checks.
And I'll even take green stamps.
Oh, showing our age.
Yeah.
Yeah, older is beautiful.
That's right. But no, in terms of dreaming, absolutely. You still actually have, at least I do, I do have a visual cortex, but my visual cortex gets used differently. One thing that they've discovered is that people who have been blind from birth use the visual cortex for a lot of touch interfaces with things. So for example, Braille uses the visual cortex. And now I don't know exactly if there are different centers, what specific centers of the brain are used differently for a blind person than for sighted people, because when I studied psychology, they never said anything about how blind people dream, and I was really mad because I thought that was very culturally incompetent, and I still do. I still think that we really don't know enough that normal, regular psychology does not take into account the gestalts that blind people have. But anyway, in terms of dreaming, I dream very much. I'm a vivid dreamer, but I don't have any visual component whatsoever to my dreams. They're tactile. They often will involve smell, and they will also involve hearing. But I think probably more tactile than anything else, because, you know, it may involve my skin responses, it may involve actually touching things. And it just really feels like things are happening, as if I were feeling things happen to me when I'm awake.
One thing I'd like to share about dreaming is periodically I dream back in my railroad days. So I'm working and I'm participating in a freight train, you know, taking apart, putting it together. And I think to myself, oh my God, you know, I hope they don't realize I can't see. And I've got to finish this one thing and I'm out of here.
Maybe one more question?
One more question.
Hi, I'm trained as an occupational therapist, and many years ago, I was in a location in San Angelo, Texas, and I had a child, blind at birth, you know, too much oxygen, premature, and he was 5 years old. There were no facilities for him. The big problem I had was having him identify with himself, like learning that John Paul was him. You see, because he'd say John Paul is hungry, John Paul is this, John Paul is that. And so I wanted to ask you, did you have problems of that when you were younger, identifying with yourself? Like
I don't think I did. That's a good question. I've heard about that problem, that there have been some people who do have that, but I don't think that's a blindness issue per se. I think that's yeah, I think there are other things involved.
What I did was I got permission and I took the child to Austin, Texas, where they have the School for the Blind in Texas, and I got the program arranged that the mothers lived in Texas during the week with the child so they could get proper training, because there was no facility for him in West Texas where we were.
I think Edry had a comment about that.
From my experience as a social worker, I also have a master's in social work, you know, which is pretty good. I think my thing is that there was also another diagnosis about the child that was related to cognitive combined with a visual impairment. Because usually, I do remember as a child I was born with congenital cataracts. And I was able always to identify as me when Edry was called, it was Edry. So I would definitely think that there was something else added that you probably might not know at the time.
At the time, yeah. And
so I want to thank everyone for coming out, and thank our panelists as well for a great job. And just to remind you, there are 2 other installations with the Moon Reader. This one is open until October 10th. And then it is also at the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, which is on Walnut between 9th and 10th. That is up till October 27th. And also at Haverford College at the McGill Library, also up till October 27th. And finally, we really would appreciate your comments on the Moon Reader Facebook page, because this is a bit of a pilot, this project, and we're trying to understand what is compelling to people, what is problematic. Any kind of comment that you give us is very helpful. So thank you, and thank you to the library.